Welcome to the 60th episode of Dialogika, a podcast between two friends about the latest in politics, society, and feminism in Indonesia and the world. I'm Swedian Lee, and this is part 2 of Stephanie's conversation with Michael Victor Sianipar, a former member of Ahok's staff during his time as Vice Governor and Governor of Jakarta, and current member of PSI, or the Indonesian Solidarity Party. If you haven't listened to part 1, we really encourage you to listen to that episode first, since both Michael and Stephanie will be referencing stories and topics they've discussed previously. We pick up the conversation as Stephanie talks to Michael about women in politics, specifically female political candidates and the challenges they face in a still predominantly patriarchal environment. They also talk about the non-negotiables that create the foundation for political values and beliefs, with Michael sharing PSI's core values of fighting for diversity and inclusion as well as fighting against corruption. Finally, we wrap up this amazing 2-part series with Michael's highlights and hopes for himself and the future of Indonesian politics. We hope you listeners have enjoyed this discussion as much as we have recording it. So, without further ado, here's to it.
I think a lot of young people in Indonesia, be it they coming from rich family or privileged family or not, but I do believe that a lot of young people have a good heart. They want to do something for other people. Mm-hmm. And I see this from my friends as well. But they always feel like they're just not good enough just yet. Mm-hmm. Oh, I haven't done this. I haven't done graduate school. I think politics is too early for me. I don't have the money. I don't have this, that.
Yeah.
So they're very wary of making decisions or just plunging into politics. But if they are given the opportunities and if they know that you don't have to have everything set to start, I'm sure a lot more people would be willing to enter politics at an earlier age.
Mm-hmm. Especially given that in Indonesia, other candidates are not exactly running based on credentials or accomplishments.
Yes. I have a friend who had an MBA from Kellogg, Northwestern University. Mm-hmm. She worked for one of the best consulting companies in the world for 3 years. Mm-hmm. She has a good heart, so she thought of entering government someday. But when I tried to convince her to run for office, the answer she gave me is, well, I don't think I'm ready.
Yeah.
I don't think I have enough qualification, enough experience. And I told her, look, I was 21 years old when I ran for office. I was 21 when I started working for Ahok, for the Jakarta Vice Governor and Governor back in the City Hall days. I didn't have MBA or any professional working experience, but if you see what I do, I do believe I have done some things that make it good things that make a difference. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. So this friend who I think should be more than ready compared to 99.9% other individuals in Indonesia still feel that she is not qualified enough.
I mean, do you also partly think that this is a women thing? Like, I feel like sometimes women feel like they need to be really qualified.
Maybe, but I think that also applies to
men.
To men, yes. A lot of men that I talk with also share that concern. So it's not just women, but maybe more so for women. I'm not quite sure. Mm-hmm. But I think it applies generally.
Because also I think PSI has a lot of their key figures in the party are women.
Yes. For the female candidates in the party, for women candidates, they also voiced a concern. They felt like running for office, being a mother, being a wife is a lot more difficult. If they want to campaign, they can't really go out until late at night.
Yeah.
Because they just have to be home. So there's also that pressure, which I sympathize.
And how has the party helped with that?
Well, we told them that, it's something that needs to be sorted out in the family. I mean, you got to talk with your husband, maybe with your kids too, that you're running for office. Mm-hmm. Because the best support system that you can have is not the party, but it goes back to your family. Yeah. I mean, you can't run for office unless the family is supportive of that.
Because partly it's like a whole, like, societal thing, right? I think especially in Indonesia.
Yes.
women feel like a lot of pressure to be the perfect mom and wife as well, in addition to whatever professional careers they have.
Yes. But what I did tell them as well is our role as the political party is to support you. So we know it's hard. It's not going to be easy, but when it comes to the knowledge that you need to run for a campaign, how to run a campaign, maybe even some financing, we can also help fundraise for that. But not all those, because those are hard questions that can't be easily answered. And we're just a new young party. But we will try our best to support you in making the decision to enter politics. We want to be meritocratic in the sense that we want to implement policies that have not just support women's rights, but are written by women as well.
Right.
That's why we encourage women to enter politics and make policies for themselves too.
For sure. Like so Michael and I, aside from knowing each other from high school, sort of, have occasionally said that I should go to politics. And it's like why I sometimes think I'm pretty hesitant towards doing that is like, I think I'm also pretty like non-diplomatic and, like I have a lot of strong feelings and, you know, like lines in the sand is non-compromising essentially. And, that's something I think that, you know, we should talk about and like what are the non-negotiables for you?
I admire people who have a strong opinion on what they stand for on a lot of issues. I still consider myself as one.
Yeah,
honestly.
Sure.
I mean, maybe in some ways I have become more realistic when it comes to making policies, compromises. But I do believe that a lot of things that I do right now, a lot of things that I believe in, I would not compromise. And it's important as a politician to know where the lines are, where you don't negotiate, where you are willing to negotiate. When it comes to the non-negotiables, there are two things that the reason why I'm in PSI and this political party is because two things that we will not negotiate is first is on the issue of diversity. We will not tolerate any persecution on any person because of their background, race, ethnicity, religious, socioeconomic, education, and sexual orientation. So that's something that we hold strongly. For example, when Ahok was imprisoned, we were the only party that came out directly and boldly claiming that it was an unjust ruling by the court. No other political party did that. Maybe because they have so much to lose if they make that statement, and we have nothing to lose because we're a new political party. But the discussion was simple. The discussion we had was simple about it because we know this is why we exist, because we want anyone in Indonesia to have the opportunity to partake as citizens of Indonesia. So we will not compromise on that front. And the second one is when it comes to corruption, we really want to clean up the government. So we have this policy in PSI, or at least in Jakarta, that I've been telling this to the candidates. If they are corrupt, let's say, even if the court has not made a verdict that you're guilty of corruption, but if there is an indication that you are corrupt, we will ask you to resign. That happens in a lot more developed countries. Like in Japan, the governor of Tokyo decided to resign because of some corruption allegation. It wasn't even, he wasn't found guilty yet. He wasn't even charged yet, but just some issues going around. That will be our stance when it comes to corruption. We don't want anything to do with it. So if any elected officials from our party are, how do I say it? There's gossip, there's strong indication that he is involved or she is involved, then we're going to take the proper measure to just get rid of the person. So those are areas that we don't want to negotiate in. But in many other things, not that we are willing to compromise, but we have to know the priorities. We can't get all things done at the same time. So when we're fighting in the parliament, we have to know what will be our first priority and what will be our last priority. So some other priorities we should be willing to postpone.
So, like, for example, on, like, been in the last, along with stoking fears on racial lines, there's also fears on, like, stoking of, like, LGBT menyebar, or, like, LGBT is a spreadable disease or something.
Yep.
Like, it can be spread like a disease. That's intolerance, and it's harder for political parties to address those issues.
So, I don't know if I've mentioned this, but LGBT, I think, is an issue that Indonesia is not ready yet. I think we can't even tolerate religious differences. Some other more mainstream issues. Right. How much more issues that have not even been mainstream enough. Yeah. So we still have a long way to go, and I'm realistic on that aspect.
But for example, on the case, we just heard news that 10 women who were gay or lesbian were arrested. That is considered persecution.
Yes, I would consider that as persecution.
And that is not something that should be tolerated.
Yeah, well, because that is central to our understanding of diversity. I think diversity, one aspect of it is we will not tolerate any persecution on anyone that is unlawful and also that is not human.
How do you see compromise being, something that you have to deal with? Your non-negotiables, which is racial and religious intolerance and corruption, right? How do you manage that, like, personally and as a politician?
Yeah, so I think differences in opinion on policies are okay. For example, let's just take an example, for example, like subsidies, health subsidies, educational subsidies. I have different opinions, sometimes even with my ex-boss, with Ahok. But those are healthy debates. Those are things that are okay to compromise. I mean, everyone has a different take on policies. It's okay to talk about it. And then you have somebody's more, has a stronger opinion on environment. Somebody has a stronger opinion on the economy, creating jobs. So those are issues that I think as negotiables, we can talk. I mean, we can look at the data, and even if we have the same data, it can still be interpreted on multiple levels. And we have to agree on something that is most agreeable. That will be the compromise point, which I'm fine with it. That's just the process in any democracy, including in Indonesia.
And I think what's interesting about Indonesian politics, why I feel like it's generally like, for example, we have a mutual friend, Surya. Like, we are so different politically. And I think even you and I are, like, politically pretty different. But on an Indonesian political scale, like, we're pretty similar. Because, like, there's, I think, just so few people who care deeply about policy that it's just like, who wants to actually improve things versus who don't? Like, it's like also very safe to talk to cab drivers, and it's like that's one thing that I think my Western friends find like surprising, that like politics is a very safe topic to discuss with everybody, because it's like most parties are not really generally divided along political ideological lines. It's like politics in the relational sense in a way, right? Do you see that changing in the future, hopefully?
I don't think so. I think people are still comfortable with talking. I mean, we have become more divided today than we were a few years ago, I think, than before, after what happened with the demonstrations in 2016 and the election in 2017. But I don't really see that spreading that much or that deep yet. I think efforts have been taken to bridge the gap. And for example, the governor that I'm supporting right now in West Nusa Tenggara is actually a PKS governor. So that came as a surprise to even my friends, because how could somebody who worked for Ahok is now dealing with PKS politicians? But then I told my friends, well, I look at Nusa Tenggara Barat and I see it's still a poor province. It's underdeveloped. And it just has been hit by earthquake. What I see there, 5 million people are Indonesians who deserve the same attention, the same rights, the same opportunities as people living in Jakarta. Even if they're more conservative, Jokowi lost by a huge margin in 2014. Jokowi only got 30%, Prabowo got 70%. Right. It's a conservative society. West Nusa Tenggara. And the governor right now is from PKS. But as long as he's willing to work with me, he's open to have a Chinese Christian working in his office. That's good enough for me. As long as we have the same concern to develop the province and then just making sure that people there can cope with the earthquake aftermath.
Right.
So attempts like these are being made, and that's what makes me hopeful. Unless we stop communicating, or we just don't want to talk with people from the other background or political opinion, I think that is when things will get worse.
How do you feel about this next coming presidential election?
I'm not really excited. I mean, honestly, I don't really think that much on. I would say I don't really care that much of national politics right now. I'm more excited on what's happening in the provinces, in the local levels.
Regional politics.
I'm sure Jokowi is going to be elected again, but I don't know how his second term is going to be different from the first term.
Right.
But I think he's still moving on the relatively right direction, so I support him. I support him completely, but not as excitedly as I was 5 years ago.
Who would have been your ideal vice presidential pick?
Besides Ahok. This might not be politically correct to say this now, but I think when Jokowi picked a vice president back then, one of the criteria that he used is to find a Muslim person,
right?
Which is okay, but I think that shouldn't be the primary criteria when selecting a vice president. So the shortlist that I heard of, the last 4 people in the shortlist they have strong credentials religiously, which generally is okay. I mean, but I'm just not comfortable with that being used as a primary qualification.
But it was in a way like, okay, let's prevent any kind of 212 incident or any kind of thing. It's like,
yes.
It's like, let's pick who can be the most Muslim so we won't have to deal with these kind of issues.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what it felt like to me.
Right. Pragmatically speaking, there might be good reasons of why he made the pick.
Yeah. And
I think I have to be fair, to be objective. I think Jokowi made the best decision possible in that aspect. And he has good intention and good reason, but as a person who underwent what happened in 2016, I'm just not satisfied, and it was personal to me. Yeah,
it was to me as well. It felt to me like kind of a betrayal of what we supported him for, right?
Yeah.
At least to me, like.
Yes.
But that is sometimes politics, right? So what do you think? What would you have told yourself like 5 years ago that you wish you knew at the time?
Well, I'm gonna tell them. I'm gonna tell myself, my younger self, that it's tough being in politics. I wish I knew better that the choice that I made and sticking to that choice up until today will cost. Well, honestly, it doesn't really cost that much. I mean, I'm still alive right now. I can still eat good food. But I feel like time is running out for me. I mean, I'm getting older. I'm still young, 27, but I just feel like I'm getting
still really young.
Yeah, I feel like I'm just getting older, and a lot of things that I see my friends have accomplished, and they're much more secure.
You mean a wife and children?
Some of them, not that many. But being young was actually, it made me easier to make decisions to enter politics when I was younger. But right now, as I evaluate my decision, just sticking to politics, it's getting a lot more difficult. But I have more reasons to be in politics now than I was when I was younger.
What are like the highlights then? Like what makes you continue doing what you're doing?
Well, the highlights is, there are a few highlights that I want to point out. The first one is, it is nice. It's a nice feeling to have hope. I think a lot of people don't have hope. And when I see people who don't have hope, I just don't understand how can you live without hope for the people around you, for your country, for just the city, or just society in general. So, and when I meet with young people and being able to talk from heart to heart and even to convince them that there is hope, that they should be involved as well. Right now, even some of my friends have decided to enter politics and government. They're helping in some provinces, helping out the governors. That gives me more hope.
Right.
So that's the best highlight of working in politics, because politics is about hope. And that's something I still believe in. And even when I see people who don't have hope, that's exactly the reason why we should be in politics, because we have hope. And we need to give that hope to other people as well.
Yeah. Never stop selling.
Yeah, and the other highlight is when I know that what I do can change people's lives.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do when you are depressed about situations?
So when I'm depressed, I always remind myself of why I'm here. That's why the story about me going to the slum is important. That defines my identity right now. Whenever I feel down, whenever I feel depressed, I would go to the slum. Sometimes I would even visit the same slum that I went to that first time. And just standing and staring at the river. And I hope that I won't see sights like that anymore. Not that anything is wrong with children swimming in the river, but...
Well, in Jakarta's river, it's pretty toxic, so skin diseases.
Yeah, well, but they look very fun. They were having fun swimming in the river, yes. But yeah, I mean, I hope they won't swim in the river anymore, but...
Well, it was super great having you. It's been really... I think we have a lot of guests come on, and it's usually more from the activist space, so it's nice to hear a different voice who works on these issues on the ground. And we just want to really thank you for your time. And how can people find you or find PSI, and what would be the best way to do that?
Yeah, well, thanks for your time as well. I mean, it's a joy to share with you guys, with you staff as well.
Nice.
If you guys want to know about PSI more, you can go to our website. It's psi.id. And we also have social media presence. I personally don't use social media right now. I'm trying to cut off all the noise. Just want to have some peace. I think as a politician, I should still be involved in social media, but not right now. I've been off for 8 months.
So you don't want new Instagram or Facebook followers or Twitter followers? This is not a spiel for that.
Or I can share my phone number if anyone wants to ask me questions. You can just contact me directly through WhatsApp.
You want to put your number on this?
Should I share it here?
Go for it.
Yeah, sure. I don't mind. Yeah, so my phone number is +62 817 0819 033.
Say that again.
+62 817 0819 033.
And I have to say, Michael is very good at responding to WhatsApp, so go for it.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. You can find more information and resources of whatever we talked about on our website, dialogika.id.
Music credits to John Dealey, Lee Roosevelt, and of course, Broke for Free.
If you like what you hear and want to support us, please review our podcast on the Apple Podcast app or whatever app you use to listen to your podcast. And please share our podcast with your friends. It's the best way to spread the word about Dialogika.
If you want to get more involved, we'd love to hear from you. Our email is dialogikapodcast@gmail.com, or just shoot us a message on our Facebook page.
You can also find us on Instagram, YouTube, SoundCloud, and now Twitter. Please follow us on these various platforms. Our Twitter handle is @DialogikaPod. Also, follow me on Twitter. It's StephTank. That's STEPHTANGK.
Thank you again, and see you guys next time.
Bye!